You know, I really love it when the audience comes out for a debut author that nobody's read any before. Thank you for supporting Talking Volumes. It's great to see you here. In fact, when we have an author who needs no introduction, I like to play a couple of rounds of literary trivia. So let's see if you know the mighty John Grisham the way you think you do. True or false? Mr. Grisham and his wife Renee live on a farm in Virginia where, among other endeavors, they raise sheepdogs who excel at sheepdog trials, and I don't mean in court. Their champion sheepdog is Sandra Day, who has won many ribbons and trophies. Is that true or false? We'll find out. When Julia Roberts starred in The Pelican Brief, the movie made from Mr. Grisham's 1993 novel, she wrote him a very affectionate note that said in part, "Some people go to priests, others to poetry, I to my friends." True or false? True. We'll find out. John Grisham has joined luminaries like Steven Spielberg, Angelina Jolie, and Ralph Lauren in being knighted by Queen Elizabeth. He really ought to be addressed Sir John. True or false? What? Why are you so sure? John Grisham writes a blazing sex scene into every book, just to show that he can. And then he takes it out before the book heads to his editor for final editing. True or false? Oh, come on, you guys. What, are you saying you don't think he's capable of writing a blazing? Is that what I'm hearing here? We'll find out. He's too nice. All right. I don't think he's that nice. All right. John Grisham had to be bribed with cheese curds and corn dogs to commit to Talking Volumes. Is that true or false? Yeah. Who said true? Yeah, we'll find out. His new novel is titled The Widow. Please welcome Mr. John Grisham for his first ever appearance on the Talking Volumes stage of the Fitzgerald Theater.
I don't know. That's quite the introduction.
I told so many lies about you.
I think most of them were false.
Were they?
Yeah.
Can we go through them?
If you want to.
Is that all right?
If you insist.
You live on a farm in Virginia.
That's true.
And your favorite champion sheepdog is Sandra Day, named after the late, great Sandra Day O'Connor.
I've never seen a sheepdog.
That answers that question. The late Queen of England tapped you on the shoulder with her scepter when she knighted you.
You have to be British to be knighted.
Ralph Lauren has been knighted.
Or Ralph Lauren.
British or Ralph?
I have never been knighted. I wouldn't know what to do.
I think you should be knighted. Julia Roberts had quite a crush on you when she starred in The Pelican Brief in 1993. And she wrote you a kind of mash note in which she said, "Some people go to priests, some to poetry, I to my friends."
Oh, false.
You look
I
like
only
you had
met
to
her
think
one
about
time, and we talked for a few minutes, and that was it.
No mash notes? No love notes?
No notes.
All right.
No.
You love writing blazing sex scenes, but they never make it into the book. Why not?
Well, when I started writing books 40 years ago, I was determined to write books my mom could read. And so the books have always been relatively clean. Language is fairly clean. There's no sex. And my wife who's my first reader and a pretty tough critic, has always said men cannot write sex. She reads all kinds of books, and she's an English major, and she enjoys all kinds of books. And she says, men don't even try. Don't even try to write sex. And so after about 20 books, I finally wrote this. I had this scene with the male and female leads. They were the stars that were in the same room late at night. It was time for them to hop in the sack. And so I wrote this really steamy sex scene.
Yeah, tell me more.
I got into it. And I thought it was really good. And so at that point, it was late in the book. At a point in each book where we're going chapter by chapter. I write a chapter, I take it to her, and she will not let me read. She will not read a chapter if I'm in the house. I have to leave and go for a walk. So she reads the next chapter, and then we go over it. I sneaked back in the house when she was reading that chapter, and I heard her laughing. And she said, "This is hilarious because it's so bad." And not long after that, we've done one joint interview in 30 years. I forget who it was, on the farm, and the journalist was, we were having fun, like we are now. She was asking questions, and she said, "Why don't you write any sex scenes? And there's no sex in your books." And Renee, for some reason, just blurted for national television, for worldwide consumption, forever. She said, "He just doesn't know much about sex."
Oh my God. And who ought to know?
And I said,
All right.
"Thanks, dear. I thought we were doing okay." So I stay away from sex.
Why do you think she thinks men can't write good sex scenes? And do you agree with that?
We don't talk about it.
Really? You left it right there, and that was it?
I know what I can write. It's working okay. I'm going to stay away from sex, okay?
We bribed you with a huge basket of cheese curds and corn dogs. Have you ever had a cheese curd?
I've never heard of one.
How's it sound? Does it sound good?
Not really. I'm here because I love Minneapolis, St. Paul. I grew up with Harmon Killebrew, Rod Carew, Kirby Puckett, Fran Tarkenton.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Grew up with those guys. And in 2019, we were here for the Final Four with Virginia. Our son went to UVA. We go to all the UVA basketball games. And we had a great coach that year and a great team. And they made the Final Four, which was a real thrill for us because it had been a long time. The whole Wahoo Nation came to Minneapolis. We had a long weekend, a great time. And we beat Texas Tech in overtime Monday night for the national title. And it was pure magic.
Wow.
It's something we dreamed up for years. And all UVA fans have a real soft spot for Minneapolis, St. Paul. So
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I think you have not been here to promote a book in a really long time. Is that right?
I came here probably about 15 years ago to speak to the Minnesota Innocence Project, which is now the Great Northern Innocence Project, raising money for that cause. And had a wonderful visit then. And thank you. And I don't recall the last time I was doing it. I don't tour much anymore. I stay on the farm and write sex scenes and train my sheepdogs and eat what's it called? Curd? Cheese curd? What's it called?
Cheese curd. Who wants to describe what a cheese curd is? Yeah, they're these dense, kind of hard, cheesy things that just lay in your gut.
Like a Cheetos or something like that?
Oh no, nowhere near as fluffy.
Okay.
Dense.
Here we go.
Yeah.
What's next?
All right. Here's a real question that I've been curious about for a long time as I've read your books over the years. Was there a formative experience in your youth or your career as a lawyer, or even in the years since you've been writing novels, that kind of crystallized your sense of justice, of what your philosophy of justice, of what justice is?
You know, there was just one magical moment that changed my life, and I didn't as so often happens, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was in a courtroom about 40 years ago in our small town, and I was not involved in the trial, but I was a member of the bar, so I could come and go. And there was this horrible rape case in our town, and of a young girl, 12-year-old girl, by a convict who had just been paroled. He was captured. They had him. He was guilty, he confessed, but he wanted to go to trial. And so the father was a guy, a nice guy, but you didn't want to start trouble with him. The family was devastated. Again, nice people, but not the kind of folks you want to start trouble with. And our whole community was electrified with the gossip of what the family might do. It was that passionate. It was that drama. It was dramatic. It was that tense. And there was this feeling in your gut of maybe they can get revenge because it was so brutal. And they didn't do anything. But the trial came around a few months later, and the guy wanted to go to trial, and he got a court-appointed lawyer, and he'd been in prison for so long, he didn't care about going back. And so they headed to trial. And the trial was intense security around the courthouse, the courtroom. It was very dramatic. And I was in the courtroom when they brought her in to testify against this guy. And we had a very wise judge who knew what was coming, and he did something I had never seen before and never seen since. He cleared out the courtroom. He said, everybody out, except for the jurors, obviously, and the lawyers and the defendant and the witness. Everybody else leave the courtroom, and the courtroom was packed. And he put deputies at the door. There were deputies everywhere. And suddenly the courtroom was empty. Because I was deemed to be an officer of the court, I could stay. And I wish I hadn't, although it changed my life. And so she testified for about an hour. At times she was very brave. At times she was very fragile. She took us through every emotion you can imagine, from love, hatred, pure hatred, revenge. It was so dramatic. And at times she broke down. There were times there was not a dry eye in the courtroom. You can imagine the jurors crying. The judge was hiding his face. I was hiding my face. The only person who never shed a tear was a defendant who never showed any remorse. It was that powerful. And the feeling of hatred and revenge the testimony was awful. Finally, she could not continue. And we'd heard enough. And the judge said, okay, let's have a recess. And as soon as he banged the gavel, they took the jury out, and I fled to get out of the courtroom. I was so emotionally drained. And I ran down the back stairs, the back door, and went to my car. And I got to my car, I left my briefcase in the courtroom. So I had to go back in, and I went up the back stairs, the back door, through the side door that we knew about. And I walked out in the courtroom, and there was a defendant sitting there, all by himself, with a deputy close by. There was nobody else around. He was being watched. And I walked by him. And I thought to myself, God, had that been my daughter, I would get my revenge right now. And I would look at that same jury, and I'd say, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do with me now that I've done something that you all want to do? It was that raw. It was that emotional. And I left, and I was driving home back to my office 15 minutes away, and that stayed with me for a long time. And I finally got the idea for a courtroom drama featuring a young lawyer just like myself, idealistic, dreaming of the big trial, with those types of issues, a father's revenge. Mm-hmm. And what would a small-town jury do with a father? And I started writing for the first time in my life. I was 30 years old. I never written anything. And it turned into a pretty serious hobby, an hour or two a day, and the pages piled up, and after 3 years, I finished it. And I finally got it published.
And that was A Time to Kill.
Time to Kill.
Yeah.
And it was a total flop when it came out. I mean, it was they printed 5,000 hardback copies, and we couldn't give them away. And but I was in such the habit of writing. I was ready for the next book. I had another idea that was far more popular, far more commercial, not nearly as complicated. And it was a story about a law firm. And my wife had always loved the story as I would pitch it to her. And so I started writing what became The Firm. And when The Firm came out in '91, 18 months later, after The Time to Kill, things changed literally overnight, dramatically.
What do you think experiencing, and obviously 40 years later, it is still emotional to remember it. What do you think experiencing that testimony, that proximity to the rapist, and the way this was unfolding in the courtroom means for your idea of how justice is served, what justice is?
Well, you can't live in a society with vigilante justice. We cannot tolerate that. But there are certain times when you think, if that had been my child or my wife or whatever. That's why I love courtrooms. I wanted to be a big courtroom lawyer. That was my dream when I was 30 years old. Because people discuss things in court that they would never discuss elsewhere.
Right.
The drama is so intense. I just love courtrooms, and I still watch trials if I can get by with it. But I love to be in the courtroom, watching trials. I don't like to get sued, and I get sued all the time.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Defamation, stuff like that. Somebody will write a book, and there'll be a scene that sort of is similar to something I wrote or I've written, and their book couldn't get published and whatever, and they'll claim that I stole that from them, and they hire a lawyer, and here we go. I mean, that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the overhead. Mm-hmm. It's not pleasant, but one lawsuit per book is a pretty good average.
Mm-hmm. Do you still teach Sunday school?
No, I did for a long time, up until I was about 30 years old, and we grew up staunch Southern Baptists, like most people in our culture down there, with some very conservative beliefs that I started to question as I got older, and it took me too long to do some serious questioning. So we left the Baptist church 35 years ago for a number of reasons, politics being one, and we became Presbyterians, and I've not taught Sunday school in a long time. We're still active in our church, and faith is a very big part of our lives, but we're in a much more moderate environment these days.
I wondered if the faith that you grew up with and the faith that you practice now informs your ideas of what is just and what's fair, and whether our criminal justice system delivers on that. Well,
when you grow up like I did, there's a very strong sense of punishment for crime without a whole lot of tolerance or leniency or sympathy. I grew up a staunch believer in the death penalty, like the majority of the people I grew up with. They still do. And I was a lawyer for 10 years, and I did a lot of criminal cases and trials, and I never really questioned the death penalty. And when I was in 1994, I was researching a book called The Chamber. I was on death row in Mississippi, researching, talking to the guards, the inmates, the wardens, everybody at the prison. I'd been there several times. I talked to the executioner, the guy who mixed the gases, and so I sat in there. This is before lethal injection. It was a gas chamber, and I sat in the gas chamber one day. I mean, all the research you can put into a book. And the last time I went, I was sitting in the holding room, which is next to the death room where the gas chamber is. It's the last place the defendant sits for an hour before he's to be killed. And I was sitting there with the chaplain, and the chaplain was a former Baptist preacher, and we were having a really hard conversation. And he said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Do you think Christ would condone and accept what we do here?" There was no way to say yes. I couldn't. I said, no. He taught forgiveness and redemption. He didn't teach punishment and hatred and violence. Christ would not accept this. He would believe in the proper result for a crime or punishment. It has to be punished, but not killing people. And he said, "You're right. This is not right. This is not what he said. What we do here with this death system we have is not right."
And yet he participated in.
He participated, and he counseled all the men on death row who would talk to him. But he was very much opposed to the death penalty, and from that moment till now, I've been very much opposed to it.
That's really interesting. I thought you were going to say that your views on the death penalty had evolved as you got more involved in the innocence, as you learn more about the criminal justice system, and you got more involved in that.
That too. I mean, once you get involved with wrongful convictions and you see how many of them there are, and you realize how many mistakes are made, and you realize how many people have been exonerated from death row by DNA evidence. And there are dozens. And you realize how many ways it can go wrong, and wrong people get convicted and sent to death row by unanimous juries now. Mm-hmm. Unanimous juries all voting guilty. Mistakes are made. And there have been innocent people executed. We have yet to have a clear case by DNA proof that the wrong person has just been killed. Okay, we don't have that case yet. I wrote a book about it in 2010 called "The Confession," based in Texas, about that scenario. I was curious about what we would do as a society when we wake up one morning and we know with clear biological proof that we just killed the wrong guy. Okay, well, what's going to happen? Nothing. We're not going to change. I've come to realize that. But it made a damn good story, and the book sold like crazy, so that's all that matters. But no, it's.
Tell me why you're convinced that nothing would change.
I'm writing a book about a death row inmate in Texas who's been there for 22 years. He's innocent because there was no crime that happened. His 2-year-old daughter died, and he was convicted of that. Last year, he came within 90 minutes of being executed. He got a last-second miracle stay in Texas. This month, 2 weeks ago, he came within 7 days of being executed and got another miracle stay, and we're trying to get him back into court. And I've been studying the case for a couple of years now. I'm writing a book about it, and I've realized how we can prove his innocence if we get back in court. That really doesn't matter to a lot of people in Texas and other states, not just Texas, but states where you have an active death penalty system, an active death state, as we say. It's a bunch of politicians who care more about convictions and tough on crime, law and order, and the brand of their party. This is part of what we believe in, capital punishment. And so the truth doesn't always matter. And that's where I think once we know the truth sometimes, it doesn't matter. It's more about winning the case, winning the prosecution, getting the conviction, and getting the execution.
You know, you would have some insight on why there is such resistance to reopening some of these convictions with the presence of the kind of evidence that you might be working on in this book with undeniable questions. Why is there so much resistance to it?
There's so much resistance because there's so much of nobody can ever say we were wrong. The prosecutors can't do it. The stakes are so high and the mistakes are so enormous they can never say, hey, wait a minute, we got it wrong. We've got the wrong guy. They will fight like hell to protect a wrongful conviction. We have case after case after case with the Innocence Project where if we could get DNA testing, we have a shot. They will fight DNA testing all the way to the bitter end. We'll pay for the DNA testing. We have the money to pay for the test. They still fight that. They fight it every day in almost every state. So, and it's why, I don't know. Because they're afraid. They have to protect a bad conviction because it's all about winning. It's not about truth or justice. And it's extremely frustrating, but that's the fight we fight all the time.
When you say you've won 2 miracle stays in this, what happens?
Well, last year, a bunch of sympathetic state lawmakers in Texas, bipartisan, and there are a lot of people in Texas who are opposed to this execution, bipartisan, but some state lawmakers pulled a fast one and subpoenaed Robert Robertson the day he was supposed to be executed. They subpoenaed him to come to a state hearing.
Wow.
And they didn't know, of course, didn't know what to do. And the court and the governor was fighting against it. The AG was fighting against it. They wanted the execution. And a judge finally said, stop, we can't do this right now. Let's take another look. That was the Hail Mary that worked. This year, I'm not involved. I'm not one of the lawyers, but he has a great legal team. But his lawyers were able to convince the court that there could be some real new evidence here, some more scientific evidence. The old scientific evidence was bogus. We should look at it again. And with a week to go, the court in Texas did the right thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
A week to go. Have you considered what it will be like if the legal team loses and he ends up being executed?
I know some lawyers and one guy on his team now who has sat through an execution. And I was prepared to sit through the execution 2 weeks ago.
You're going to witness the execution? I
was trying to get in. I'm writing the story. And I think to tell the whole story, I've got to see it happen. I sure don't want to, but I don't think it's going to happen now. We have a real chance, but a friend of mine who's on his team, a lawyer in D.C., sat through an execution that happened during the last Trump administration. The last month he was in office, they cranked up all the federal executions, and his client got caught up in the push, in the rush, and he sat through the execution. And he said he'll never do it again. It's pretty powerful.
It seems like a life-altering.
Well, the ones who've done it, some of them have done it more than once. His principal lawyer in Texas said she could not do it. She would not be there. And she's the hero. She's saved his life so far. I can't imagine what it's like.
One of the things that I was on the website of the Innocence Project, and so many of the photographs of the cases are shown with the inmates and their children. And you think, as all these years pass, these children's lives just change, and I mean, they're missing their entire child's life doing time.
And you have to keep it in perspective because, and you have to realize that most of these men, there are 7 women on death row in Texas, 163 men. They're almost all guilty, okay? And some of the murders cannot be described. Some of the crimes are so horrible and horrific, you don't want to see the photographs. These are terrible crimes that happen. So you can't get, you gotta realize you gotta keep the crime and punishment argument level. And they deserve to be punished.
But these are the people that were featured on the Innocence Project.
Well, the innocent guys are a whole different.
Yeah.
Most of them are not innocent, but enough of them are innocent to say, hey, listen, we don't have the right to implement a death penalty system when so many mistakes are made. put them in prison, life without parole. There are fewer death penalty verdicts every year and fewer executions not because of courageous lawmakers or courageous judges, courageous jurors. The jurors are now able to see the full picture with better defense representation. They can see where the defendant came from. And a lot of these guys never had a chance, okay? And so they get to know the defendant. They don't forget about the victim because it was a horrible crime. But instead of killing them, they say, let's do life without parole.
Wow.
They deserve to be punished for a long time. Let's lock them up and without parole and keep them in prison where they belong.
What do you think has happened to create that change?
One factor is the number of high-profile exonerations in the past 30 years. We've been shocked all the time at how many of these guys walk out after 10, 15, 20 years, innocent, proven by DNA. Mm-hmm. Half the time when we do DNA testing with the Innocence Project, the DNA nails the real rapist or the real killer.
Because they're in the system somewhere?
Or they wouldn't allow DNA testing. Or 20 years later, we finally find the evidence that was hidden. We can test the rape kit, and you have the DNA. So the truth comes out. And the rape kit nails some other guy who's usually in prison. Mm-hmm. So in about half the time, we can solve the crime if we could just get the DNA testing. Mm-hmm. But I never lose sight of. I knew a family that was torn apart by murder in my home county. I watched the trial. It was a senseless shooting of a shop owner, and the guy's still on death row in Mississippi. I've talked to him. I watched his trial, but it was a horrendous thing for the family to go through. It's a needless loss, and they never got over it. They could not get over it.
You have no doubt that the person who's serving time for this did it?
Which case now?
The case you just described, the family.
Oh, yeah, said there was no doubt he was
guilty. It's a horrific crime. He's in prison.
There was no doubt he did it. There was no doubt he did it. He was on drugs. I talked to him. I watched the trial in 1980. I talked to him 20 years later on death row in Mississippi, and he was... these guys, after you spend a number of years in a cell with 23 hours a day, you become very docile. First of all, they're not drunk anymore. They're cleaned up. They're sober. They're different people. He said, we were talking. I said, I know the Turner family. I know the family that lost the. Mm-hmm. And he had a big smile. He said, you know the Turner family? We talked. I said, yeah, just go to church with them. And he said, man, would you tell those people how sorry I am? He said, I had a bad night. I was on drugs. I killed Mr. Turner in his store for a few bucks with a sawed-off shotgun. I've thought about that every day. I ruined their lives, and I've ruined my life. And I'd like for them to know that I'm sorry. And that was, that was pretty powerful.
What'd you do?
I eventually told the family. And they had 20 years had passed, and they had come to accept it. They still wanted him executed. And it was comforting to know that there was some remorse.
I just wondered if there's a moment where you think, what will this serve to tell them?
I think all the victims would like to hear an apology, and it's rare.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, sure. I know a family in North Carolina that got a letter from prison, horrific crime, and they got a letter one day out of the blue, and it was one of 3 men who killed their daughter. And he said, I don't expect you to ever forgive me. I can't imagine what you've gone through. I was young and stupid and whatever. I just want you to know I'm sorry. And I live with this every day. I'll never get out. I deserve this. But I just want you to know I think about you and I'm sorry. It meant a lot to him.
How rare is I deserve this, do you think?
There are quite a few death row inmates when they make their last statements. Once they're on the gurney, and they're strapped down with Velcro, and the veins are in their arms, and they're under a sheet. And at that moment, they pull the curtains back. You have 2 witness rooms. You have one for the family, and then one for the prosecutor and the victims, and they're all together. And suddenly you can see, everybody can see the gurney, and the gurney's right there in front of you. There's a glass wall, of course. And so the warden reads the death warrant from the court, and then the warden, there's a phone on the wall, and the warden says, "Are there any phone calls?" Something from the governor or a last-minute stay. And by then, those were very rare. And once the warden clears the phone calls, and he pulls a microphone down to the guy's face for his last statement. And he can say anything he wants to say. He can talk as long as he wants to talk. And some are very dramatic. Some proclaim their innocence to the bitter end. Some are apologize. They're very remorseful. And some, quite a few, say, "Look, I got no problem with this. What I did was terrible. I ruined families. I ruined my life. I got no problem with this. Let's go."
Wow.
It's all very dramatic.
You've, over the last 30 minutes or so, you've said a couple times, horrific crime. You can't imagine how terrible it was. And I've wondered if you are still shocked by the capacity for violence that some people possess.
Yeah, it's shocking when you see when you sit through a trial and you see the photographs of the crime scene, and it's profound. And most juries have no problem finding guilt. Sentencing is a different matter. Life or death takes longer sometimes, but that's a family that's lost somebody they loved, and their lives will never be the same. Yeah,
but for you.
Oh, for me. It's very moving when you sit through it and see it. I prefer not to see it now. I've been there a few times. I prefer to avoid it.
And when you read some of the details of these cases, having been around this, having written about it, does some people's capacity for violence still kind of startle you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Man's inhumanity toward man is still stunning. It's still shocking. There are crimes every day that you wonder, how could you be so barbaric? Crimes you don't hear about, but crimes that happen. 40% of all murders are never solved.
Wow.
There are a lot of really bad crimes that are never solved. So yeah, I'm still surprised by it. Still shocked.
I have a question as we get towards hearing the first excerpt. For all of the portraits of different lawyers that you've written into your novels, is there a characteristic, a quality that you think these lawyers have to inhabit to, propel the plot, or be someone who is compelling enough to spend time with in a novel?
There's no common trait. Most lawyers, I get criticized. I get the tough question all the time. Why are you so tough on lawyers?
Do other lawyers ask you that?
Oh yeah. And not nearly that polite either. And I say, look, most lawyers are honest, hardworking people who don't make a lot of money. I was a small town guy in Mississippi, and there's not much money to be made, just a lot of hard work. You have clients who can't pay, you have tough cases.
Like the lawyer in this novel.
Yeah, our hero, Simon, he's not doing too well. But most of them are honest people who work hard, and they take care of clients, and they do their job. That's what they're supposed to do. Nobody wants to read about those people. You want to read about the lawyer who cracked up, stole the money, faked his own death, and ran away. That's what you want to read about. And those cases happen all the time. You want to read about the big law firm that blows up. They all sue each other and blah, blah, blah. And that's the fun stuff. I'm trying to sell books, okay?
Yeah. No, what I wondered, though, is as you create these lawyer characters, is there some kind of well, he's got to have this, or she's got to have this?
I don't think there's a common trait, but I think of all the lawyers I've created, including Simon, the guy we're about to meet, you know what, I think once you become a lawyer in a big firm, medium firm, big city like this, or a small town where I'm from, people expect you to have plenty of money. Yeah, you're a lawyer, okay? And the average income is not that much for a lawyer, average. Some lawyers do very well, others barely scrape by, but I think there's an element of greed. It's not always bad, but when you go to law school, you think, okay, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to figure out a way to make some money.
Did you think that?
Oh, yeah, big time, big time. When I went to law school, I had a degree in accounting, and I was going to become a tax lawyer and make a lot of money representing people, wealthy people, who do not want to pay their taxes. And I have no idea where that came from. I didn't know any wealthy people. There aren't many in Mississippi, okay? And I finally studied tax law in law school, and I said, God help me, I can't take this for the rest of my career. And I forgot about being a tax lawyer. So I started with the idea of, being able to make, you dream of, a lot of people start law school very idealistically, want to change things or work for a certain cause. That's all good stuff. Most of us about halfway through start thinking about, I got to make a buck. and I got to pay off student loans and that kind of stuff now. So there's an element of greed, I think, in every legal story.
You know what's interesting about that story? You started off, it sounds like, going, hey, I got to make some money. I'm in this for the buck, and became more idealistic as the legal career went on?
I was always fairly idealistic. I always had a big heart. I could not say no to people in my hometown I grew up with, people who had legal problems who couldn't afford a lawyer. And listen, half of all Americans, half of the people in this country, do not have access to civil justice because they can't afford it. Wow. And so that's where legal aid tries to step in with a Band-Aid approach often. There's never enough legal aid lawyers to help the people. And I had people in my office that they didn't have a dime. They were being evicted. They were being fired. They were being prosecuted. And I couldn't say no. That's why I didn't make any money. Yeah, I couldn't say no to people.
It's hard to imagine you spending your career with wealthy people, just doing the bidding of wealthy people.
I never met any. In 10 years of practice law, I never met any wealthy
Really?
people.
Not one wealthy person walked in the door?
No, until that's where the story came from.
Yeah.
That's where the widow came from. It's a story of Simon Latch, a small town lawyer in Virginia, just like me. His career's burned out. He's got problems at home. He's got a lot of problems, and he's doing a very routine, simple will for a lady, an average client, small town. She's 85 years old. She is a widow, and she has no family, not many friends, and he's trying to get through this process, a simple will. I did 1,000 of them. You get paid a few bucks, and that's it, until he realizes she's got some money, and the wheels start turning. How can he maybe make a few more fees off of her? And it all goes south. And that's the story of the widow.
Before we hear the excerpt, I just want to say, I found it so interesting that he realizes that the last lawyer that did the will was also kind of a creep and greedy. And he feels this for momentarily, the sense of moral superiority, until the wheels start to turn and he thinks, how do I make something on this?
The lawyer across the street has made a will a month earlier. And the widow, Eleanor, is really worried about that will because she thinks he wasn't very honest with her. And as Simon reads the old will, he realizes that his buddy across the street has put his name in the will as a beneficiary. That did happen to me one time, but it wasn't for very much money.
Really?
I can't find my reading glasses.
Oh.
I've got my sunglasses, my phone.
We can have them brought out here,
If we know-
hopefully. Where are they? Uh-oh.
You got them? Oh, I'll try to read it.
Hey, borrow these.
I should.
They're like a 1.5. Will that do?
That's not nearly strong enough.
Okay. See if they help.
Okay.
Ah, here we go.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yay, Tom. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
This is a section from the first scene in the book where Simon sits down to meet with Eleanor, the widow, and he's taking information, and he says she's very nervous, and she says she took a deep breath and suddenly looked worried. I can trust you, right, Mr. Latch? His name was Simon Latch. Of course. I'm your lawyer. Duty bound to keep everything confidential. Simon noticed a slight flutter in his intestines, as if some truly wonderful and unexpected facts might be in the works. He'd had a few surprises in the past 18 years as a pseudo-estate lawyer, but nothing significant. Well, she says, you see, Mr. Latch, oh, just call me Simon. Simon, what a nice name. You see, Simon, Harry worked for almost 40 years as a district sales rep for Coca-Cola. I think that's what killed him. He got his blood sugar up, had a stroke at 69, and never recovered. We always had plenty of Coke, the real thing, not diet, in the fridge, and he drank too many, at least in my opinion. Anyway, he qualified for stock options, a few at a time, and he bought every share of Coke he could get his hands on. Never sold a share, just enjoyed watching it pile up. And boy, did it. Then about 30 years ago, he began selling Coke products to Walmart and became fascinated with that company. It was selling a lot of soft drinks. Harry began buying stock in Walmart and never sold a share. When he died suddenly, he was wondering what to do with all that stock. He didn't want to leave it to his boys because they're nothing but trouble, still are. And here's the thing, Simon, the boys don't know anything about his stock. Harry never told them, never told anyone but me. He thought it was funny that we lived quietly in our modest little home and no one knew we were worth millions. Millions? Simon managed to keep scribbling on his yellow legal pad, but his handwriting, illegible on a good day, quickly deteriorated into nothing more than chicken scratch. At that moment, he could not remember a single will he had ever drafted for a person worth $1 million, excluding real estate. He maintained a lawyerly frown, as if thoroughly unfazed, and said, what did he do with all that stock? He left it to me, along with everything else. What's it called? The marital deduction? Yes, that's it. You can leave everything to your spouse free of estate taxes. Harry must have been a smart man. Funny thing, he never claimed to be smart. He was quite modest, worked hard, paid his debts, saved his money, bought his stocks, and left it all to me. He wanted to do something to help his sons, and frankly, he tried everything. But if they had known about his portfolio, they would have driven him crazy. So he never told them. Then he died suddenly. It was rare for a client seeking a simple will to throw around words like portfolio and marital deduction. Simon's radar went up another notch or two. What's the value of the portfolio? She actually put a hand over her mouth as if she couldn't say. Then she rubbed her eyes and looked frightened. She lowered her voice and said, "And all of this is strictly confidential, right?" "We've already established that, Miss Barnett. If you want me to draft a proper will, I have to know what's in the estate. A simple will may not be what you need." He could almost feel the new document growing thicker by the moment. And the retainer was growing too, now up to $5,000. If people only knew, my friends, Harry's boys, no one knows, Simon. I was told to stop there. I guess I'll keep going.
You can keep going if you want. Go ahead. This is great.
Okay, let's get to the good part. Simon flashed a comforting smile as if to say, "You can tell me anything." Instead, he said, "These walls are made of steel, Miss Barnett. Nothing leaks through. I'm ethically bound to keep all your secrets." Fortified, she gritted her teeth and said, "As of last week, the stocks were worth slightly more than $16 million. The market goes up and down, you know." Simon scribbled down the number while managing to keep a solemn poker face as if nothing was out of the ordinary.
I'm a stranger, no one could have saved him. His destiny began on the run. He's a false-hearted hero, hid out in the willow, came to give the devil his due. 'Cause you're gonna need his help someday. You're gonna need today and you have it tomorrow. Stranger want a little more than that. Holy roll of me, oh me, oh my. In come a stranger with trouble on her mind. You're gonna need his help someday. You're gonna need You'd like a fine gold watch and a chain to match. Sign on the line, that's all I ask. She said, sign on the line, your soul I will take it. Willows bend and your will I will take. You're gonna need his help someday. You're gonna need devil about down, that old stranger got mean. Let out a howl just like an old monkey with a tambourine. Monkey with a tambourine, monkey with a tambourine. The devil's just shaking it like a monkey with a tambourine. But oh, you're gonna need his help someday. You're gonna need You go to the river, throw yourself in the water deep. You come back screaming like a monkey with a tambourine. Monkey with a tambourine, monkey with a tambourine. The devil just shaking it like a monkey with a tambourine. But oh, you're gonna need his help someday. You're gonna need
Molly Mayer. That was great. Thank you. You're listening to Talking Volumes at the Fitzgerald Theater with author John Grisham. His new novel is titled The Widow, and I'm Carrie Miller. You look like you have something to say.
Who, me? No,
Yeah.
What's the question?
Here it comes. So the action in this novel moves to the courtroom and eventually to a jury. And I've been thinking about our earlier conversation and wondering, given what you said about how juries are more resistant to sending people to death row, whether you think there has just been a change in juror culture all the way around.
I'm not sure we know the reasons. I've already mentioned two reasons. The trials are a bit different because the jurors know more about the defendant and they have more sympathy for him in spite of what he's done. And also there's much more skepticism toward the police and prosecutors because of all of the high-profile exonerations. There have been over 3,000 people have been exonerated in 30 years, a lot by DNA. The cases are famous. They happen in all 50 states. Wrongful convictions happen everywhere. But I think the reason is jurors are just more informed and more skeptical and not as eager to believe maybe some junk science or questionable experts or jailhouse snitches who are testifying to get something out of the system, or all the problems we have with wrongful convictions. Jurors are more skeptical.
The other thing I'm curious about is whether you think there is still a kind of mystery to what happens inside a jury room. And there's some allusions to that in the novel.
It's fascinating what goes on in a jury room. And I've never been there. You can't go in. Nobody can go in.
You've never been called to serve on a jury?
I've been called twice, once in Mississippi and once in Virginia. I showed up both times, eager to serve, and didn't make the first cut.
I mean, why do you think?
Well, in Mississippi, this was a long time ago, I was getting close to the end of being selected, and during a recess, I went back and talked to the judge, and I knew some of the lawyers. And I said, I am happy to serve. I believe in serving. I'll hear the case. What I worry about is some of the other people on the jury maybe putting too much credence in what I say. I don't want to be an improper influence in the jury room.
Was this before you were a best-selling author?
Oh no, I was
practicing
I was
law.
insanely famous back then. No, it was 1993, and the first big movies were out. The first, the firm, Pelican Briefing Client were out. The movies were out, so things are crazy.
Okay, so everybody did know you.
Especially in a small town like Oxford, Mississippi. Yeah, they knew who I was, especially in court. And I said, Judge, I'm happy to serve. If you guys pick me, I told the lawyers, I'm happy. I'll be fair. I know the law. I can follow the law. I can judge the facts. Just let me, whatever. And somebody cut me. I never did know. I went back and sat down, didn't make the final cut. And in Virginia last year, I got summons. My wife and I both got summons to the same court for a civil docket. And we showed up and signed the questionnaire and ready to go. And everything's settled. There were no trials that week, so we were off the hook.
You think you have a better shot of being put on a jury now?
It's
That you're still
there's no way.
insanely famous?
There's no way they'd let me on a jury. No, I don't think. I mean, I'll try. I'll try.
So, okay, back to that original question. It is mystifying to try to understand the chemistry that seems to take over in a jury room. Reflect on that
I don't know.
for a bit.
I mean,
will you?
you never know what goes on. You'll hear gossip. And in some cases, once the jury comes back, some judges will allow you to poll the jury.
Right.
Bring the jury back in. They give their verdict. And the judge will say, would you like to poll the jury? Ask each one of them, is this your verdict? Mm-hmm. And then occasionally the judge will allow the lawyers to ask questions, but not many, because it's kind of a protected system. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to know what happened. You know, nobody can get in the jury room but those 12 people. And they're told not to talk about it. Now, I have talked to jurors. I talked to a juror last week who convicted Robert Robertson in Texas 23 years ago. Mm-hmm. And she has since come out and said, we got it all wrong. We didn't have all the evidence. They didn't give us all the evidence. And the science has changed. And it was a bad decision. And I'm on record as saying it was a bad decision. I'm sorry. I wish I could redo it. And the policeman, the chief detective who arrested Robert and testified against him at trial is writing op-ed pieces in Texas saying, hey, we got it wrong. This man is not guilty. He's innocent, okay? Mm-hmm. We blew it. So we have some very strong evidence. But back to the juror, she told me that they spent a day deliberating guilt, which was complicated. They found him guilty, and there were two very strong advocates in the jury room for guilt. Most people wanted to hear all the argument and evidence. It took 4 days for the sentencing, death or life without parole.
For them to debate it?
Yeah, it's really difficult. Even though the guilt may be clear. It was a horrible crime. The guy did it, okay? When a juror has to vote to take somebody's life, it's a different matter. You think it would be easy, okay, until you're there. And it's very emotional. This trial, I told you, I watched the guy 40 years ago, and I talked to him on death row. I was in the courtroom when his jury came back. And there were several ladies on the jury who were just very emotional. Mm-hmm. It was unanimous for guilt and unanimous for death. But they were wiped out. And they said, we're never doing this again.
Yeah.
To have to pronounce death on a human being. That's why the whole system needs to be changed.
I want to ask you, if somebody in your, let's say, extended family was arrested for a serious crime, let's say it's not murder, but it's a serious crime, how confident would you be that the way our criminal justice system works, that they'd get it right?
Well, I have two brothers who, just kidding.
Who are both criminals? Okay.
Who both have felony convictions. No, I'm just joking.
Are you kidding?
Well, no, I'm kidding. Yes,
Okay.
I'm kidding. We have no felony convictions in our family.
Okay.
Tough question. I don't know. If it was, someone in my family, we would have the resources to make sure they had good defense lawyers and a proper defense, which is not always the case. But even with that, things can go wrong in trials. And I used to believe in the jury system. I used to believe that juries almost always got it right. But I've changed my mind because there's so many wrongful convictions brought back by juries with unanimous verdicts, 12-0 for guilt, 12-0 for death. And they're wrong. And it takes 25 years to unravel that.
Right.
And prove it and get the person out. That's happened many times in this country. There's a scene at the end of the book. I shouldn't tell this, should I? It's a spoiler.
Is it a spoiler?
I'm not going to spoil it, okay? But a judge mentions 3 or 4 other cases where juries got it wrong.
Yeah.
I can't say any more than that. Spoiler. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. But the reason I'm thinking about that is something goes wrong among the jurors in this case too, in the novel, which
that's all fiction, though. I'm not sure. They didn't. There's not much about the deliberations in the book,
right.
So I stayed away from that.
Why?
Because I was running out of time. Okay, I was tired. I was tired of the book. Okay.
What? Did you just say you were tired of the book?
Oh, I get so tired of them at the end. I can't wait to
Really?
kill everybody off. Okay. Here's what happened. I finished the book, and I was done. I was on time, and I had this really quirky ending that I was not sure about. And normally I'm certain. When I start a book, I know the ending. That's just a rule. I have an outline. I have the ending. I know it's written down. With this story, I had something kind of quirky, really a surprise. And my wife read it and said, "This is not going to work."
Really?
Yeah. And I said, "Okay." And so I sent it to my agent, who's also my editor and my best friend in New York for 35 years. And he edits everything. And he said, "This ain't going to work." I said, "Okay, I'm not going to fight."
People actually tell John Grisham, this won't work.
My wife is pretty brutal. She's the first reader, and she reads the manuscripts with a red Sharpie. It could be black or blue or green, but it's red. And she likes to make these really sarcastic comments in the report. We have some pretty good discussions about it. Yeah, they both said no. And I said, "Okay, give me 30 days, and I'll fix it." So I kept writing. The story continued. And I kept writing like a fiend in the month of January this year. I wrote 25 or 28,000 words in the month of January. So I was in a hurry. You can't rush the story but I was over 100,000 words,
oh my
which is the magic threshold for me. And I was eager to get to the end because I was kind of tired of it.
So there is a twist, but this is not the original twist.
It is now.
Is it?
It has become original, yeah, and final. No more changes.
I think you ought to tell us the.
No, we can't do that.
No,
we can't do that.
Shoot.
It's a mystery. You can't ruin the mystery.
I really want to know what that.
Sorry, I'll tell you later.
All right. All right. You really get sick of the books by the time that you're finished?
Not sick of them, because you have to love them to finish them. You have to love a story, to create it, to outline it, to plan it, and to write 100,000 words, which is 500 pages, in a span of 6 months. I mean, that sounds fast, but I write 1,000 words a day.
It does sound fast.
Yeah, but it's not. To me, it's a leisurely pace. Several hours in the morning. 1,000 words a day is not a big stretch for fiction. Nonfiction is a far different matter. But by the time I get to the end of it, I've edited, I've written it, I've changed, made all the changes. I take my wife's edits. I send the book to New York to my agent. He goes through it, and I still listen to people. I still listen to people, 3 or 4 people I'm very close to, who say, this is good, this is bad, whatever. I listen to them. And that's a mistake a lot of big writers make. They reach a point where they don't want to be edited. They don't want to make changes, and you can tell it.
Yeah, for sure.
It shows.
Yeah. You are still open to some pretty tough editing, it sounds like.
From some people. Yeah.
And others?
A handful of people. No, by the time you see the book, it's been done. I finished it 6 months ago.
Something, that's what I wanted to ask you about, is when we handed you the excerpts that I asked for, you said, "Oh, I haven't even looked at this in 6 months." Yeah. It was almost like the book was such an afterthought.
It was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm writing another book now, and another novel, and I'm writing the nonfiction book now. So
simultaneously?
Yeah, it's not working. I can't write 2 books at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm trying it now, and it's not working.
Why are you trying to do it?
Well, we thought we had a deadline with the Texas case because there was an execution. So I was in high gear to get that done ASAP, to get the book out next spring. And thank God there wasn't an execution, so I have plenty of time now. So I've kicked back on that one, trying to finish the novel by the end of the year, which is my goal.
Do you still love this the way you did at the beginning?
Yeah. It's still fun. It's still fun to do stuff like this. You know, in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I mean, I'm touring around on a short book tour. Events like this are hilarious for me. I never dreamed I would be doing this, okay? And I could do it all the time, but I don't want to do it all the time. But a short book tour is good. But it's still fun. When I start a book in January, it's still, you know, the days are short and the weather's bad. It's a great time to write. And I love to get back in the routine of a new story and work out the plot, the setting, the characters, and put together these complicated stories that people enjoy reading. It's still a great deal of fun.
I think you can still feel the propulsion in the novels and your joy in it. Is that a right word to describe it?
Yeah, I mean, when it's not fun anymore, I'll quit. It's very enjoyable, and there are a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories. You know, I follow the law. I watch lawyers, trials, courtroom dramas. Not watch them personally, but from a distance. Litigation, law cases, courts, appeals, big law firms blowing up, issues, crime. I kind of live in that world, and there's a lot of material. And I mean, I watch lawyers talk about material. There's always something going on, and you can take a pretty good crime and change a fact or two and have a great mystery. And the headlines are full every day. There's always a new idea, and it's still fun after 50 books.
Of all the lawyers that have been created in literature, and let's say also on the screen, is there one that you, not of the ones that you've created, is there one that you most identify with or
Love.
feel, feel a lot of affection for?
When I was a kid, I was addicted to Perry Mason.
Really?
And those weren't real mysteries, but there was always a crime he had to solve. And then I read the books, Earl Stanley Gardner's books later in life, and I just grew up with that stuff. And I've always loved the Perry Mason show. I still watch them.
Do you?
Yeah.
The old shows?
The old shows, yeah.
Raymond Burr.
Raymond Burr.
Yeah. All right, the last excerpt.
Okay, this is, I hope we don't give away too much here, because this is later in the book, and Simon is in hot water. He's talking to his lawyer. He's about to go on trial for murder. Things have not gone well. His lawyer says, "We are of the opinion that you should not testify." He says, "I'm listening." The lawyer says, "I've tried 1,000 cases, Simon, and I can only remember a handful in which the defendant helped himself by taking the stand." And that's true. You hear it all the time from defense lawyers. They say, "I said it, you can't testify." When they do, they become fair game for a brutal cross-examination, one the prosecutor has been planning from day one. There will be traps, trick questions, insinuations, arguments, retorts, irrelevant comments. Of course, I'll be there to object and raise hell, but in the end, we'll probably wish you had stayed in your seat. Simon looked at Casey, the other lawyer, and said, "What do you think?" Casey said, "You're a lawyer, Simon, and half the jury will suspect you are not telling the truth just because you're a lawyer. You're fighting for your life, and you'll say anything to stay out of prison. But you've never been cross-examined like this before. Some of your actions look suspicious on the surface. By the time they're hashed out and rehashed on cross-examination, they'll look even more damning. I agree with Raymond on this one. Let's play it safe and keep attacking the prosecution's case. Simon looked at Raymond and asked, if the jury voted right now, what's the score? Raymond took a sip of coffee, closed his eyes, and said, 8-4 to acquit. He looked at Casey, who said, who are the 4 to convict? Raymond said, 2, 4, 7, and 11. Casey said, I'll take those 4 and add 8 and 9. For a second, Simon felt like he was playing poker at a table with 2 professionals. He flashed back to those halcyon times at Chubb's Pub when he played video poker for hours while drinking bourbon and ginger ale and watching 3 games on the big screen. But it was his life they were betting on. Casey said, I've never liked this jury. I'd say a 6-6 split. Simon asked, so no acquittal? No acquittal. No conviction, a hung jury with a retrial later this year and a better jury.
I've got $1 million secret just waiting to play you like cards on the table. It's a fool that survives. It's the fool with the greedy eyes. A drop of poison, a bad seed, never falls far from a crooked tree. It's the fool that eats it whole. It's the fool that's rotten to the core. Small town talk, small town lies, framed like a portrait with my watchful eyes. I bet it all on you. Small town secrets will come to light, caught in a web that got spun in the night. I lost it all on you. The storm is gathering near, starts with a rumble, then the thunder is all you hear. I'm a fool looking for a prize. I'm a fool with no alibi. The evidence is plain to see, starts with a whisper. Now the deck is stacked against me. I'm a fool who believes, but the truth will not set me free. Small town talk, small town lies, framed like the portrait with my watchful eyes. I bet it all on you. Small town secrets will come to light, caught in a web that got spun in the night. I lost it all on you. Gambler's debt is never paid. It lines the walls of this house of lies we made. Each crooked beam, each floorboard stained with a fortune you so foolishly claimed. I bet it all on the fool town talk, small town lies, framed like the portrait with my watchful eyes. I bet it all on you. Small town secrets will come to light, caught in a web that got spun in the night. I lost it all on you. I've got $1 million secret just waiting to play you like cards on the table.
Molly Mayer. Okay, Molly, tell us the story of the song.
What's that?
Tell us the story of the song.
That song, well, first off, been waiting a whole lifetime to say, first-time caller, lifetime listener, Carrie Miller.
All right.
That song I actually wrote for tonight. I saw some of what your book was about, Mr. Grisham, and I decided I would take this as a writing challenge, and I wrote it what I thought your book was about. So it's a brand new song. I've never played it before.
Thank you. It's great. You're listening to Talking Volumes at the Fitzgerald Theater with writer John Grisham. His new novel is titled The Widow, and I'm Carrie Miller, and we're going to open it up for some questions from the audience. When's the last time you were asked a question that you didn't know the answer to?
Oh, I always have an answer. I'll think of something. It's probably going to be fictional.
All right, good to know. Question right up there on the first balcony.
You've now done some sequels for Jake Brigance, for Mitch McDear. Are there any other characters like Greg Grantham and Darby Shaw, which would be a personal favorite to see a sequel to, or anybody else in kind of your repertoire who you've got ideas rattling around of like, how would I revisit this particular, Reggie Love, or anybody?
Yeah, thank you. I've forgotten most of those people. I think about them all the time, but there's no plans to go back anytime soon and revisit those characters with novels, but you never can tell. I love the character of Reggie Love, Susan Sarandon in The Client. You can see her in a little office in Memphis, Tennessee, trying to help people. There could be some real drama there. I think about those people, but I can't see going back anytime soon.
Question right over here on the floor.
What do you think about the changes that were made in the Rainmaker miniseries that's out right now?
Well, I'm the executive producer for the show. There are about 15 of us who are EPs. I have no idea what the others did. I did nothing to be in. I had nothing to do with it. I've got several other TV shows that are getting close to being filmed. I stay away from it. I stayed away from the movies, and that's just the safest way to be, place to be in this business. I enjoyed the show. It's now been renewed for a second season, so it's coming out. I think it's a very strong cast. I like the cast, but I'm just an observer. I had my fun with the book, and the movie was very well done by Francis Ford Coppola in Memphis 30 years ago. I enjoyed that. And let somebody else have fun with it. It's always going to be change. It's going to be different. You can't worry. If you don't want to see it change, then don't sell the film rights.
Do you stay away from it because you're kind of like, now it's out in the world, let them do what they will?
Well,
or
several reasons.
It's going to be frustrating, too.
It can be very frustrating. I don't know how to make movies or TV shows. I don't want to learn. I mean, I'm not doing that. I'd rather write a book. I'd rather be at home writing the next book than worrying about something I wrote 30 years ago and what they're going to do to it. Again, if I worried about it too much, I wouldn't sell the film rights. And so we try to deal with good people, with good reputations in Hollywood or in the industry, and say, here it is, run with it. It's going to be something different. Hope it's something good. I've been very lucky with Hollywood. I've been very lucky over the years. Some really good films have been made, but I don't get near it.
Yeah. Question right down there.
Thanks so much for being here with us tonight. I spent 35 years working at Mayo Clinic here in Minnesota. I'm not a doctor, so please don't ask me for advice on the way out the door. But I got to spend, I'm not retired, so I could say I spent a number of fun nights at Pete's Bar in Jacksonville that loomed large in your book, The Brethren. And you weave places like that into your books as you go along that I feel add a level of verisimilitude, that you have these kind of obscure places that are real places. So I guess my question is, how do you research them? How do you find those places that you can weave into your stories?
I just go to bars. Just hang out in bars. Almost every place I've been in my life, I like to go back there. I was in Jacksonville with Pete's Bar is the oldest bar in Florida, right there on Jacksonville Beach. Wonderful old bar, just so much character, so many characters. But we were down there for spring break. I took my son's high school baseball team to Jacksonville to play baseball in March. You can't play it in Virginia. And we were hosted by a big high school down there. We did it for like 5 or 6 years in a row. And I wasn't coaching. I was the team owner. I owned a high school baseball team. And it was so much fun. And the coaches would take care of the boys at night, and me and the other dads would sneak off to Pete's and drink beer all night, smoke cigars. And that was so much fun. But I'm always looking for places to put in novels. It's just part of the fun of the job. Or going somewhere I've never been before and want to put a novel there. I've done that several times. And that's one of the perks of the job, is being able to travel and see places like Pete's.
Question right over there.
Hi, Mr. Grisham. Thank you so much for coming to St. Paul, Minneapolis. We have some big March Madness fans in my house, so I'm glad you enjoyed the tournament. My question is, there's some really great authors who are lawyers. We have a local author named Alan Eskins, who I love. Do you think there's certain skills or traits or, what might draw lawyers to being a great writer?
A couple things. It's the material. Lawyers see a lot of great stories. Most lawyers are pretty good storytellers. Some are windbags. You have to be able to write to survive, to finish law school, to pass the bar exam. You've got to be able to express yourself. And so most lawyers are pretty good writers. Most lawyers are lousy novelists because they cannot resist the urge to impress the reader with how much they know about the law. It's easy to get lost in the law, and most writers can't keep it on the surface. And I've learned that years ago. Make it interesting, but don't go too deep, because you can overwhelm your readers. And so the good lawyers who write, and there aren't many of us who do it successfully, keep the law pretty light.
It's funny that other lawyers say to you, "Why are you so hard on lawyers?"
Oh, from day one, I got blasted by lawyers who were criticizing me for criticizing them, and I always said, "Hey, man, it's fiction, okay?" But there's so many good stories of bad lawyers, and doing bad things. When we love those stories. We see one in the newspaper, you read it, and you think, "Oh, this is horrible." You never read about the guy down the street who is a small town practitioner who takes care of people.
Right.
Doesn't make much money. That's boring. Nobody wants to read that.
Question right up there on the second bout or first bout.
Good evening, Mr. Grisham. I'm wondering, Carrie asked you early on about some formative experiences. I'm sitting up here with a couple of teachers, and I'm from a family of teachers. I'm wondering if, you've become such a prolific writer, do you have a shout out to a high school or college English teacher that might have had some influence? And is there a particular book you remember reading as a youth that helped set you on this path?
My daughter's a school teacher in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we love school teachers, and she loves teaching. She loves what she does. When I was a senior in high school, my English teacher was Frances McGuffey, who's still alive, and we're still in contact. And she was very tough. And she taught us to read, she forced us to read great writers, the great works. And I was a jock. I was a football player. I thought I was really good. And I couldn't show any weakness for things academic. So I couldn't show out in the classroom, and I wasn't that smart. But we read a John Steinbeck story one time called Tortilla Flat. And I loved the story. And I went to Miss McGuffey after class, and I said, hey, I really like this story. I like John Steinbeck. And she said, okay, try this one, Cannery Row of Mice and Men. Here we go. My whole senior year in high school, she was giving me books by John Steinbeck, so nobody else could see it, okay? Didn't want to be caught doing anything academic. And she saved the best for last, which was The Grapes of Wrath. And I read that book as I was finishing high school, and I still read the book. I go back and read it every 4 or 5 years. It's one of my favorite novels. But she had a profound impact on me as a reader. I didn't think about writing back then, but I've thanked her many times for that. She had a big impact on me.
Question right down here.
You're just talking to this? Yeah, I'm Don, a retired physician. Mostly have read fiction or the nonfiction throughout all my career. Didn't believe much in fiction. Picked up a book, The Rooster Bar. I was on vacation, and I just loved that book. It was fun. It was really fun. And about these 3 to 4 people that built the government out of money, and they went overseas to, not Nigeria, but whatever. I bought about 16 other your books, and I just loved those books. And then I picked up one that I just hate, and it's called The Reckoning. Now, you say that you know the ending before you start the damn book, right? That was a terrible book. And I just said I was not going to read any more of your books.
And yet here you are tonight.
I've since read the Firm and the Pelican Brief. I saw the movie years ago, but I love those books too. But why did you write that book? The Reckoning.
It's one of my favorites. There are no lawyers in it. There are no lawyers in the book. It's all small town Mississippi. True story, based on a true story. In a small town in Mississippi back in the 1930s, one day a prominent businessman drove to town. He went to the hardware store. He said hello to the guy who owns it. Hey, how you doing? You know, routine stuff. He pulled out a pistol and shot him 3 times, cold blood. Wow. Got in his car and went home, truck and went home. He waited for the sheriff. Okay? He would never tell anybody why he did it. He went to trial. He wouldn't plead. He wouldn't plead guilty. He said, I did it, but I'm not going to plead guilty. He wouldn't say a word. He wouldn't tell his lawyers. He wouldn't tell his family. He never told anybody why he did it. And these are 2 prominent men. And he was facing the electric chair, the portable electric chair. I wrote about it in great detail. I'm sure you love that part. And so, and right before he was executed, the governor took the train from Jackson, Mississippi, the capital, to the small town, went to the jail. And this guy had been a supporter of the governor. He said, your execution is tomorrow. The electric chair is hooked up in the courtroom. If you'll tell me why you did this, I'll commute your death sentence, and you spend the rest of your life in prison, but you won't be killed. But tell somebody the truth. Why did you kill this man? And he said no. Oh. And he was executed, fried the electric chair the next day. And I thought that story is too good to pass up. I'm sure there's another version you might like, but I love that story.
Question right over here.
Hey, Mr. Grisham, thanks for being here. I was curious, what made you want to come out with a sequel to The Firm in 2023 instead of like 95?
It's a tough crowd, isn't it?
Tough crowd. But did you like the book? That's the big question.
Love the book. Just was curious.
Thank you.
Was it like writer's block or something?
Get with him afterwards, okay? You guys. I thought about Mitch McDear for years in the firm. These people do stay with me. I brought Jake back once or twice in A Time to Kill, and I hesitate to do sequels, especially if they've been filmed, because you have a certain image of the characters. Film is so powerful. But I finally had, I thought, was a decent story to use with Mitch. And I said, what the heck? It's been 30 years. I'll give it a shot, see if it works. That's why I did it. It was fun. I was glad when it was over. I'm not going to do it again.
Question right up there in the balcony.
Thank you. I was thinking for a second, I don't want to go after that guy, so I'm glad you jumped in between us. I'm just curious, in the age of AI, with all of the new potential it has, the advantages, but all of the concerns as well, what is that doing to your process and how you're working, or how you think your peers might evolve your careers?
Tough question. I was in New York Monday and Tuesday publishing The Widow, and I was talking to my agent, again, who's a very close friend, and we were talking about AI. I can't say a lot about it because last fall, about 15 or 18 best-selling writers, including me and David Baldacci and Jonathan Franzen and a bunch of guys, sued OpenAI, now owned by Microsoft, for outright copyright infringement. They've stolen our books, and they plug them through their language models, and off they go. They need data, and they probably, I can't say too much. I don't use it. I don't want to use it, but there's a real fear that as it gets better and better and better, and it's improving every day, we could reach a point to where there are a lot of books being written by AI with authors' names on them, or even fictitious names. And I'm not going to buy one if I know that, but what if the books are so good that other people buy them? Yeah. So will publishers even need us? Could we be out of business? I don't think so, but it's very uncertain. And it's really, I would hate to be, a very young person starting out in this business now, because there's so many unknowns with AI.
Are you good for a couple more questions?
Sure.
All right, great. Right down there.
So you've said a couple of times that you don't put a lot of technical into the books, which, from reading other legal authors, I agree. But have you encountered many times where a professor had used your books as part of the material? That happened in my legal writing class. So I was surprised to find out that maybe that's not a common occurrence for you.
It happens. I don't know how often it happens. I mean, I'm not privy. I get a lot of letters from people who experience it. I thought you were going to ask about making mistakes with the technical information, and I make mistakes all the time. And the mail is just hilarious. It comes from all over the world. Some people really have a problem with some of the books, the endings, and they write me these long letters, and I'm sure this guy will write one about the reckoning. He probably doesn't like that book. But no, it's I've had judges write me notes and say, hey, this lawyer used this example in a courtroom in a trial, or a juror will say, write me a letter, hey, the lawyer quoted this from the book. It's all flattering. It's we say part of the brand, and I'm very flattered that people like to talk about them.
Okay, one question up in the balcony, and then one down below here. Okay.
Number one, thank you for being here. This is just an amazing presentation and discussion. Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
Question for you. I hear a lot of hard work that goes into your novels, research and such. Have you ever, of any of your 50 novels you've written, had one come to you in a dream? And which one was it, if it did?
Wow. I honestly can't remember a dream. One came to me one year in the day after Christmas, in a fit of depression and anger, after cleaning up the Christmas mess, and I thought, why can't we just skip this? And so I thought about all the things you would have to skip Christmas, and I also like to put a lot of humor in my books. It comes out with the sex. When you write suspense, you can't have a lot of humor, okay? And so I like to use humor occasionally. But Skipping Christmas was a story where I could tell this funny story and use all the humor I wanted to use, and try to really be funny. And that's the only time I've really been inspired by something like that. But I honestly cannot think of a story that came in a dream.
Wow. We do have someone in the audience who has a book for you. Am I looking at the right person? Up there in the lower balcony. Oh, right over there. That was Harper Lee's inscribed to. Let's put the microphone. I just want you to hear this because he got in touch with me. We'll keep the story fairly brief.
Some time ago when a local hockey player was paralyzed, Jack Jablonski, you actually signed books for me for the charitable cause, John, thank you. And I befriended Harper Lee through this, and one of the people she claimed to like was you. And so I gave her...
You hear that? You see?
I sent her a couple of copies, Wynwood edition, A Time to Kill books. I actually sent them, you signed them for me, and we had a little correspondence. But anyway, she did inscribe a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, a first edition, which I have, to you. I've just been unable to find you to track it down, so it's been sitting on my shelf for some years.
Well, can I have it now? I mean...
you can follow my wife and I home. But I can happily, Carrie has a correspondence and you can pass it along, and it is your book, it belongs to you, she signed it for you.
Will you give your details to, yeah.
And
right.
I have
is
all
she still
the
there?
email.
She is still there.
I went and had lunch with her, with Nell Harper Lee in Monroeville before she passed.
Wow.
And it's your book.
Thank you.
And you're going to finally get it. Thank you very, very, very much for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Wow.